ओम ज्ञानद्वृन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकथं इन्द्रविश्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलान् श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमामि विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नाम्नि नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादि पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यः च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Reading from Prabhupada, Śrīla Prabhupāda-līlāmṛta, Volume 2, Chapter 42, continuing from historian Arnold Doyenne was old and invalid. Therefore, Prabhupada agreed to visit him at his residence. Interested in discussing life after death, Dr. Doyenne asked Prabhupada about karma. Most people, he said, were afraid of death. Prabhupada agreed and added that, according to a certain astrologer, one of India's recent leaders had taken birth as a dog. So they are afraid they will go down, he said. When Doyenne asked if karma could be changed, Prabhupada replied yes, but only by bhakti, devotion to God. Arnold Doyenne, not many people in the West are thinking of this. Prabhupada, they are less intelligent. It is not good. If they take to Krishna consciousness, they can continue to work and live in the city. But they can change their consciousness. Then automatically everything will come. Srila Prabhupada asked Dr. Toynbee about the book he was writing, and the professor replied that it concerned an ancient Greece influence on the Greece of today. The Greeks came from India, Prabhupada said. Vedic culture was once all over the world. Gradually, a new type of culture, just like this recent partition of India and Pakistan, took place. Prabhupada explained how in the future the governments would fall to rascals and thieves whose only business would be to exploit the citizens. Food would be scarce, and the government would levy so many taxes that the people would be harassed and go to the forest for shelter. Only the God conscious people would be free. The future would be an ocean of faults with but one saving factor. Simply by chanting Krishna's names, one could be free. Even now, Prabhupada said the hippies were going to the forest and the men were separated from their wives and money and were going to the hills and forest in disappointment. You can predict the future in this way, Prabhupada said. Arnold Toynbee. In India, did the politicians keep the Vedas? Prabhupada, no, they threw them away. Present Indian politicians are not very satisfied with the Vedas. They threw them in the water. I have started among the Indians and Americans, and for the next 10,000 years, Krishna consciousness will increase. Then there will be a gloomy picture of Kali Yuga. 10,000 years is not a short period. It is our duty on behalf of Krishna. Arnold Toynbee. Do you travel much? Prabhupada, all over the world. I, a bearded young priest active in social service, visited Prabhupada and upon Prabhupada's prodding, debated with him about meat eating and the Bible. During the discussion, Hamsadutta and Pradyumna were citing passages from the Bible against meat eating. Later, after the priest had left, Prabhupada called Hamsadutta back into his room and said, "It was not very good for us to speak on the basis of Bible. Better we stick to the Gita. Why bother to approach them for compromise or cooperation? They will never be convinced. What is the point of meeting with the Pope? Those inclined to meat eating, Prabhupada said, would always find some quote in the Bible, such as the covenant with Noah after the flood. We do not even know what ghastly things are occurring in slaughterhouse. He said, no one sees these things. The next morning on his walk, Prabhupada continued discussing his talk with the priest. In the name of religion, Prabhupada said they are killing. The Bhagavatam says this cheating religion is kicked out and simply worship of God is instated. Devotee, the priest last night said that Jesus ate meat. Prabhupada. Then Jesus contradicted himself. He also said, "Thou shalt not kill." One shouldn't imitate the Ishwaras. A hippie type mendicant in India takes ganja and claims to be a devotee of Shiva. No, we should not imitate the powerful controllers. That priest said also that the Bible doesn't say, "Thou shalt not kill," but "Thou shalt not murder." So I told him that if the word is actually "Thou shalt not murder" in the original Hebrew, then Jesus must have been preaching to the fourth class, 10th class men, murderers, and the proof is that they murdered him. So, such people, what can they understand about God? When I told him, the priest was silent. He could not answer. Another priest came to see Prabhupada, and again the question came up. Prabhupada asked him, "Then you are in favor of killing?" The priest replied, "Well, it is a fallen world." "It is a fallen world," said Srila Prabhupada, "but we do not have to become among the fallen." The priest cited the covenant with Noah. Prabhupada replied, "Maybe Noah allowed it at that time, the time of devastation, but that doesn't mean you always have to do it. To live in such a time, one can eat anything to stay alive, but now so many things are in abundance to keep healthy without maintaining a slaughterhouse." In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Protect the cows, it is a duty of Vaishyas." Although Prabhupada willingly discussed with Christians, he admitted privately that to argue with them was a waste of time. "They will never agree," he said. "Even if they are defeated, the best way to preach to people in general was through the chanting of Hare Krishna, as at the Rath Yatra festival. Chant, dance, take prasadam, and invite everyone to join." Anyway, he said, "they don't even follow these their teachings." One boy came to me and said he wanted to talk. He said, "I am a Christian." But I told him, "You are not a Christian. Thou shalt not kill." A man from Calcutta came to see Prabhupada, but as soon as the man began to say something about Krishna, Prabhupada interrupted. "Krishna is something very difficult to understand. We are just trying to understand that there is a next life. But the Christians say there is no future life," the man said. "At the end of this one, you either go to heaven or hell." "But if they talk about going to heaven," said Prabhupada, "then there is next life. But knowledge of Krishna is only for the most perfect out of thousands among men." Mr. M. Kumar, who sometimes lived in London temple, visited Prabhupada with many questions. He wanted to work for ISKCON, he said, but required money to send his mother in India. "No," Prabhupada told him, "our men work 24 hours a day without a fasting." Mr. Kumar suggested ways to improve ISKCON. The devotees needed to study more, he said, especially Sanskrit, and become scholars. Prabhupada disagreed. "All we need is dedication," he said. "I am not a Sanskrit scholar, but I am pulling on. And even the scholars say it is good." My Guru Maharaj, Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, was illiterate. Still, his disciple, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, was the greatest scholar of the day. But when Gaurkishore spoke, it was exactly from the Shastras. Our principle is not to take time to learn something and become expert and then preach, but whatever you know, teach. Class in the morning, class in the evening, and if they read of my books, that is sufficient. One day, the devotees brought Prabhupada a newspaper clipping in which an Oxford professor, Mr. D. Zehner, had said at a religion conference that Lord Krishna and his Bhagavad Gita teachings were immoral. Dr. Zehner had said that a famous murderer was perhaps influenced by the Bhagavad Gita because Krishna says that soul is immortal, so one can therefore kill. Srila Prabhupada was disgusted with the professor's ignorance. On the next morning walk, he dictated to his secretary arguments to use in writing to Dr. Zainer. George Harrison approached Prabhupada in a submissive mode similar to that of a Prabhupada's disciple. Prabhupada and George took prasadam together, a special lunch of samosa, halwa, vegetables, sauce, sour cream, and puris. While they were enjoying the prasadam, Prabhupada mentioned that certain Vrindavan pandas, professional guides at a holy place, eat too much. Once one ate so much that he was practically dying, but he assured his son, "At least I am dying from eating and not from starving. To die of starving is unglorious." Prabhupada smiled as he talked with George. gratefully acknowledging his donation of the manor. Have you seen my room? Prabhupada asked. It's actually your house, but my room. No, George protested, preferring the mood of a humble disciple. It is Krishna's house and your room. When George confided to Prabhupada that by taking to Krishna consciousness he was losing friends, Prabhupada told him not to worry. He read to George from the Gita where Krishna explains that he can be known only by devotional service. In the future, said George, ISKCON will be so large it will require executive management. Prabhupada, I have divided the world into 12 zones with 12 representatives. As long as they keep to the spiritual principles, Krishna will help them. Before leaving, George assured Prabhupada that he would help him increase his temples. Later, Prabhupada commented, George is getting inward hope from Krishna. One day, an old acquaintance dropped by Allen Ginsberg wearing denims, suspenders, and a faded shirt and carrying a little Indian made harmonium. You are still chanting Hare Krishna? Prabhupada asked. Yes, Alan replied. I still chant Hare Krishna, but I also chant other things. Alan asked if Prabhupada would like to hear his chanting and playing. Prabhupada nodded. Alan began playing his harmonium and chanting Om. With each recitation of the word Om, his voice went deep. Om. When the chant was over, Prabhupada began to laugh. You can chant whatever you want to chant, he said, but just keep chanting Hare Krishna. As long as you are chanting Hare Krishna, then everything else is all right. Prabhupada then allowed many devotees to join them for a big blissful kirtan. Through George Harrison, another famous pop singer and musician, Donovan was drawn to come and see the renowned leader of Hare Krishna movement. Donovan, accompanied by a musician friend and their two girlfriends in mini skirts, sat in awkward silence uh, before Prabhupada. Prabhupada spoke. There is a verse in Vedas that says music is the highest form of education. And he began to explain how a musician could serve Krishna. You should do like your friend George. Prabhupada said, we will give you the themes and you can write the songs. Prabhupada said that anything, even money, could be used in service of Krishna. But money is material. Donovan's girlfriend interrupted. What do you know? What is material? What do you know? What is material and spiritual? Prabhupada said. He turned to Donovan. Who do you understand? Donovan humbly replied that he was thick-headed but trying. Donovan's girlfriend then leaned over and whispered something into his ear, whereupon Donovan stood up and said, well, we have to go now. Prabhupada insisted that at least they first take some prasadam. As soon as the guests left, Prabhupada and his disciples began to laugh. Prabhupada said she was thinking, and he encouraged his disciples to finish the sentence. Yes, said Yogeshwar. She was thinking that if Krishna gets him, then she will lose him. Prabhupada so much liked preaching to important guests that he wanted to continue doing so wherever he traveled. Wherever I shall go now, Prabhupada wrote in a letter to a disciple, this policy of important men being invited to talk with me about our Krishna consciousness movement should be implemented. A month passed by at the manor and still several weeks remained before Janmashtami and the deity installation. So when Bhagwan requested Prabhupada to come for a visit to Paris and install Radha Krishna deities, Prabhupada agreed. Paris, August 9, 1973. The devotees had arranged an official city hall reception for Srila Prabhupada. In the presence of the mayor of Paris and his government entourage, Srila Prabhupada said that if the government leaders do not teach the citizens genuine God consciousness, then they are not responsible leaders. Reporting this talk in the next day's paper, a news writer stated that the Swami even criticized Napoleon Bonaparte. Bhagwan, we have we had just moved into our new temple at 4 Rue Le Soir, Paris, and we had received 48-inch Radha and Krishna deities. Prabhupada had Pradyumna chanting the mantras and pouring substance on the deities, while Prabhupada himself looked on from his Vyasasana, giving directions. I was assisting, and at one point I turned around and saw Srila Prabhupada standing right next to me, taking the substances in his own hands and smearing them over the lotus face of Srimati Radharani. After the deities were installed on the altar, Śrīla Prabhupada came up and offered the arti and I assisted him by handing him the articles. After the installation, we went up to Srila Prabhupada's room and very anxiously requested him to please give a name for the deity. He sat back in his chair and said that the deities will be known as Radha Paris Ishvara. He then went on to say that in India, people look to England for education and to Paris for sense gratification. He began to laugh and said that Krishna has come to Paris in order to get some gopis, some French girls, because the face of women in Paris are considered the most beautiful. Radharani is so beautiful, Prabhupada said, just like a Paris girl. And Krishna has come here to find out this most beautiful of all the gopis. So he is Paris Ishwar. Prabhupada returned to London and the latest mail from India. So August 15, Prabhupada returned to London and the latest mail from India. A legal complication had arisen regarding the deed for ISKCON's land in Hyderabad. Prabhupada wrote his disciple Mahamsha, cautioning him to avoid becoming entangled in another Bombay affair. When Prabhupada also received word that the temple construction was progressing in Vrindavan, he replied, I am pleased to hear how you are completely absorbed in the project of our Vrindavan temple and taxing your brain how it can be carried out. I am also always praying to Krishna that he may give you intelligence to carry it out rightly. In a letter to a disciple in Hawaii, Prabhupada apologized for not replying to a letter. I am very busy in Bombay for the Juhu land and Mr. N now he is dead and gone, but he had created so many obstacles. Still there is discrepancy. But I hope this will be squared up without delay. Writing to Tamal Krishna Goswami in Bombay, Prabhupada was as attentive as ever to ongoing troubles there. Although the devotees remained in possession of land and had rebuilt their temporary temple, no purchase settlement was in sight. If Mrs. N is not going to sell us the land, then what next step we have to adopt? We fix a criminal case against her for attempting to dispossess us from the land. And what happened to that case? The idea is that if she is not going to sell the land to us and at the same time does not return our money with damages and interest and occasionally trying to dispossess us from the land, then what steps we have to take? She has given us so much trouble and botheration. And Prabhupada wrote to his disciples in Mayapur. Yes, Mayapur construction must be completely finished before I return. The next time I come, there must be no more workers or carpenters with their tack sound. I would have continued to stay in Mayapur, but the hammering sounds drove me away. When you are completely finished, I will go there, otherwise not. Prabhupada also answered dozens of letters from America where the devotees who were becoming more and more keen to distribute his books. Their letters contained very crucial questions that only Prabhupada could solve. How important was book distribution? Would the devotees abandon their robes and wear regular Western clothes to better distribute books in public? Was chanting on the streets more important than book distribution? What about taking buses and vans around the country? Would they travel with deities in the vans? The devotees generally mentioned their own viewpoints in their letters to Prabhupada, and yet they respectfully awaited his definitive reply. The Krishna consciousness movement was now big, with potential for growing much bigger. And within ISKCON, Prabhupada's will was so powerful that a single letter from him would establish a policy for years to come. Prabhupada appeared to be sitting quietly in his room at the manor, following his daily routine of bathing, eating, and meeting evening guests, yet at the same time, he was directing thousands of young men and women all over the world and sending them into action in the war against Maya. There is no objection to going in the Western clothes in order to distribute my books. It is not necessary that we always wear the robes, but we should always keep shikha and tilak. However, a wig or a hat may be worn as you described. We have to take whatever is the favorable position for executing Krishna consciousness. Do not forget our principles, but sometimes we may adopt such means in order to distribute books. Sometimes, somehow or other, distribute books. And if you can impress people a little to chant them, then it does not matter about your dress. The devotees continue to request clarification as to how far the end justified the means in fulfilling Prabhupada's order to distribute books profusely. Srila Prabhupada, being free of any material motivation, could clearly see the Krishna conscious thing to do. Regarding the question you have raised about the traveling Sankirtan party and selling of books, yes, we want money. So that is the real preaching, selling books. Who can speak better than the books? At least Whoever buys, he will look over. The real preaching is selling books. You should know the tactic how to sell without irritating. What your lecture will do for 3 minutes, but if he reads one page, his life may be turned. We don't want to irritate anyone, however. If he goes away by your aggressive tactics, then you are nonsense and it is your failure. Neither you could sell a book, neither he would remain. But if he buys a book, that is the real successful preaching. That is a certificate of my Guru Maharaj. If someone, Brahmachari, would sell one paisa magazine, if one of our Brahmacharis would go and sell a few copies, he would be very, very glad and say, "Oh, you are so nice." So, distribution of literature is our real preaching. Now, if you cannot handle the matter nicely, that is your fault. But the success of your preaching will be substantiated by how many books are sold. Anything you want to sell, you have to canvas a little. So he gives some money for the service of Krishna. That is his good luck. And he gets the chance to read some transcendental knowledge. But if you only irritate and he goes away, that is your less intelligence. Prabhupada's instructions were so important to his disciples that a letter from him was as effective as personal visit. By such letters, he maintained the lives and affairs of his disciples all over the world. Each day in the late morning, he would have his secretary read aloud each incoming letter, and usually he would dictate the answer without delay. He had often said that the Vani or order of Guru was more important than the Vapu or personal presence. Thus, by his letters, he established and illuminated the path of Krishna consciousness for his sincere followers. In America now, Prabhupada's preaching was primarily through the distribution of his books, whereas in India it was through establishing temples. Yet both methods were one and the same to him. And although his vision encompassed the whole world, he felt and described himself as only the humble servant of his spiritual master. Whether sitting peacefully on the lawn of the manor and teasing one of the little children or directing one of his lieutenants to drop thousands and millions of books into the laps of the conditioned souls, whether meditating with great energy on the next phrase in his Srimad Bhagavatam purports or worrying about what Mrs. N was conspiring in Bombay, he always tried to serve his Guru Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada received an emergency phone call from Bombay. Giriraj wanted him to come and personally settle with Mrs. N the purchase of the Juhuta land. Giriraj had consulted a new lawyer, Mr. Bakil, who felt that Prabhupada must be present for there to be a settlement. Another ISKCON lawyer, Mr. Chandawal, Chandawal, also advised that Srila Prabhupada come immediately to Bombay. Giriraj therefore had telephoned Prabhupada begging him to please come and settle the matter with Mrs. N once for all. Prabhupada agreed. He would remain in London one more week until Janmashtami, then he would return to Bombay. August 21st, M. Rasgotra, the Indian embassy to England, attended the Janmashtami Day celebration and introduced Srila Prabhupada. Expressing his appreciation of Prabhupada's great work, Prabhupada spoke describing the advent of Krishna as the key to the peace for the troubled material world, especially in India. He said, "We have got so much asset for understanding God. Everything is there ready-made, but we won't accept. So, what is the remedy for such disease? We are searching after peace, but we won't accept anything what is actually giving us peace. This is our disease." So the Krishna consciousness movement is trying to awaken the dormant Krishna consciousness in everyone's heart. Otherwise, how could these Europeans and Americans and other countrymen who had never ever even heard of Krishna 4 or 5 years ago be taking to Krishna consciousness so seriously? Therefore, Krishna consciousness is there in everyone's heart. Prabhupada recited prayers from Brahma Samhita describing the sublime eternal existence of Krishna on his eternal planet Krishna Loka. But Krishna is also everywhere, he explained. And if you are a devotee, then you can catch him. If you want to catch him, you come forward 10 times more. Sorry, he comes forward 10 times more than your desire. Therefore, we simply have to receive him. There, this deity worship in the temple means worshipping Krishna, the supreme personality of God. He has very kindly accepted to assume a form which you can handle. Therefore, do not think that we have installed a marble statue. The rascals will say they are heathens. Heathens. No, we are worshipping Krishna personally. Krishna has kindly assumed this form because we cannot see the gigantic Krishna or how Krishna is everywhere. Remain 24 hours a day Krishna's service. This is the purpose of installing the deed. Bombay, September 15, 1973. The day after his arrival, Srila Prabhupada met with Mrs. N's solicitors and heard their offers. The situation had begun to look hopeful, and yet the conclusion eluded them. Mrs. N had become changed by the public reaction to her attempt to demolish the temple. If Prabhupada would pay the full balance of 12 lakh of rupees for the land in one payment, she told her lawyer she would agree. Prabhupada was agreeable but did not want to arrange to collect his money until he was certain that Mrs. N was actually serious. Mr. Asnani, a Bombay lawyer and ISKCON life member, regularly met with Mrs. N, persuading her to cooperate with Prabhupada. Her lawyers concurred. Yet, after Prabhupada had been in Bombay for several weeks, no meeting with Mrs. N had taken place. Once Mr. Asnani went to bring Mrs. N to meet with Prabhupada, but she was not feeling well. Day after day, Mrs. Asnani would tell Prabhupada, Mrs. N will come tomorrow, and Prabhupada became disappointed at the procrastination. And seeing this, his secretaries told Mr. Asnani that although they knew he meant well, they were inclined to have their other lawyers handle the case. Mr. Asnani asked for another 48 hours to close the deal and execute the conveyance. Mrs. N was at her other home, where she had just recovered from her illness. When Asnani, when Mr. Asnani visited Mataji, he begged, my Guru Maharaj is leaving tomorrow. If you don't come tonight, the problem with the land will go on another year. Mrs. N agreed, and around 9 p.m., she and Mr. Asnani arrived at the home of Mr. Bogilal Patel, where Srila Prabhupada was holding a program of Kirtan and Bhagavad Gita discourse. Prabhupada was on the roof preparing to lecture, but hearing that Mrs. N had arrived, he interrupted the meeting and came down to his room to talk with her. They talked briefly, and Prabhupada excused himself and returned to the roof of the roof to lecture. Around midnight, he returned to his room again. Mrs. N was still waiting. She burst into tears and bowed at Prabhupada's feet. I am sorry for everything I have done. So sobbed. Please forgive me. She promised to do whatever Prabhupada wanted. Prabhupada looked at her compassionately and understood her heart. You are just like my daughter, he said. Don't worry. I will take care of you. I will see to all of your needs for the rest of your life. And Prabhupada said he still accepted the very terms he had proposed, that he pay the remaining balance of 12 lakh rupees, 12 lakh plus 5,000 rupees compensation for the delay. Prabhupada and Mrs. N had set November 1 as the tentative deadline for the final signing of the conveyance. Shortly after their meeting, Prabhupada moved from Bogilal Patel's to the home of Mr. Sethi, where working intensely, he tackled the remaining problems, such as getting C Company to withdraw their claim. Next, he moved to the home of Mr. C. M. Kathau, just 2 blocks from Hare Krishna land, where he lived in a summer cottage, a simple structure with a bamboo frames and chatai walls. Usually, conveyances had to be signed in the presence of site registrar at his office downtown, but Mr. Asnani had arranged for the registrar to come to Prabhupada's place. 63 6 at 6:30 in the evening, Srila Prabhupada was seated at his low desk between two windows, his back against the wall. Mrs. N and her lawyers, the registrar, Mr. Asnani, and Mr. and Mrs. Chetty, and about 8 devotees were present, and the full room grew warm and stuffy. Mrs. N sat at Prabhupada's right as the registrar prepared the papers for signing. Srila Prabhupada sat gravely. The room was silent except for sound of papers rustling and a pen scratching. Preparing and signing the conveyance papers took more than 20 minutes. Prabhupada paid Mrs. N, who then signed the conveyance. The land was legally ISKCON's. Giriraj. The room was hushed during the signing, and everyone felt as if a momentous event was taking place, just as if the two great world powers were signing a treaty. After Mrs. N signed the document, everyone silently watched the papers being passed. She started to cry. Tamal Krishna Goswami quietly asked her why she was crying, and Mrs. N replied that just that day, Mr. Mathur had come and told her he had found a buyer for the land for many more lakhs than we were paying. Actually, as we were watching Mrs. N, we were thinking that she must be remembering all the events that had taken place, the wrongs that she has done, the death of her husband. It was very intense, like a combination of months of struggle. So for Prabhupada, the devotees and Prabhupada's well-wishers, their dreams and desires and efforts over the past many years were being fulfilled. Srila Prabhupada asked the devotees to inform the newspapers and he invited everyone into the hall outside his room for a feast. Mats were rolled out in two lines and devotees brought leaf plates and placed them in front of everyone. The devotees began serving the various dishes to the two rows of seated guests. Prabhupada was standing. Now let us start, he said, as he supervised the serving. The devotees had prepared several courses, rice, dal, many varieties of pakoras such as potato, cauliflower, and eggplant, potato sabji, wet cauliflower sabji, puffers, burfis, laddus, cham, a milk sweet, vermicelli, kheer, halwa, and a lime drink. It was a festive and happy occasion. Mrs. Warrior, a tenant on Hare Krishna land, the devotees were all saying Jai after the signing, and all of them were very happy. Then Prabhupada gave a lecture about the Bombay project. He gave an idea to all the people of how it would be all marble. There wouldn't be a single thing that wasn't built from marble. Some were asking how it would be possible for everything to be marble, and Prabhupada explains that it was possible and could be done. He was visualizing the project, and everyone was thrilled to hear the way he was describing it. It would be like one of the seven wonders of the world. People would be attracted from all over to come and see it. It would be a landmark in Bombay. Prabhupada explained the whole project as if he saw it in his mind's eye, and he said that after it was constructed, it will be more than what we could visualize. It would be fantastic. After the late feast, when everyone had departed, Prabhupada returned to his room. Leaning back at his desk, he exclaimed, "It was a good fight." Later, Prabhupada would cite the story of the fight for the Bombay land as evidence that a person in Krishna consciousness has no problem. Now we have spent in Bombay 18 to 20 lakh of rupees, he said months later while on tour in Europe. The property is actually worth 50 lakh. People are surprised and some of them are envious. But if you come, you will find that it is a very, very fine place. It is just like a paradise garden. 20,000 square yards and we have got six buildings. So actually, when we come to Krishna consciousness, there are no problems. Surely the land was full of potential, but how could he say that there had been no problems? No problem meant that Srila Prabhupada saw how Krishna personally arranged things for his devotees. When he had needed money, it had come in an amount that ordinarily would have been impossible to collect. And to the formidable opposition Krishna had removed, Prabhupada had no organized means of income and little political influence to fight persons like Mr. and Mrs. N. But because he was surrendered to Krishna, there was no problem. All the problems of the world were created by non devotees who defied the injunctions of the Supreme. Anyone who is in Bhakti Yoga, Prabhupada said, he can understand that all problems are solved. We can practically see. And yet he had had to tolerate the problems created by the non devotees. For almost 2 years, he had struggled to secure the land for Krishna's service. Whether in Bombay or elsewhere, he had had to worry over how to help his inexperienced disciples who were ill equipped to handle the ploys of the opposing party. It had been an ordeal, a test of patience, a challenge of courage. But because we have not been bewildered by Maya illusion, there had been no problem. Prabhupada showed by his example that if one strictly follows Bhakti Yoga, one is not touched by the modes of nature, by Maya. The same transcendental science he constantly taught in his lectures and informal discussions He also personally demonstrated he was faithful in Krishna consciousness and all his problems had been adjusted. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that if one surrenders to him, one easily overcomes all problems. The devotees understands that the problems of Maya, there is a Prabhu, you can say, that problems of Maya can be overcome by surrendering to Krishna, by surrendering to the orders of Krishna's representative, the Supreme and the Spiritual Master. Now that the land was ISKCON's, Prabhupada could proceed to enact his vision. Let me mute. Hare Krishna. Now that the land was ISKCON's, Prabhupada could proceed to enact his vision. In attempting to construct buildings and propagate Krishna consciousness, he would meet the more Maya created problems, no doubt, but the greatest struggle had been won. The gorgeous temple of Sri Sri Radha Rasavihari would manifest. In the future, devotees and guests could come to India's gateway and stay in a first class hotel at Hare Krishna land and conveniently imbibe the spiritual atmosphere of the temple. And the devotees, as long as they did not forget Prabhupada's example and instruction, could successfully utilize the facility in the spirit of service to Krishna. The price Prabhupada had paid in tolerance and dependence on Krishna would never go in vain. When Srila Prabhupada produced by his tolerance was not only the facilities and the ongoing mission at Hare Krishna land. Sorry, what Srila Prabhupada produced by his tolerance was not only the facilities and the ongoing mission at Hare Krishna land, but a monumental living example of behavior of a sadhu. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kapiladev describes the sadhu, Titikshaspa Karunika Srada Sarvadehinam Ajata Shatra Yatrava Shanta Sadhava Sadhubhushana. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies, he is peaceful, he abides by scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. Because the sadhu is tolerant, he is undisturbed by the difficulties imposed by material nature. In Prabhupada's attempts to secure the Juhu property, he had met with enemies and difficulties, and he had been tolerant. Prabhupada had sometimes said, "You have to tolerate." And the sadhu is not only tolerant but merciful. Karunika. When ISKCON's provisional temple had been attacked by police, Prabhupada could have considered it a signal to leave the place and give up trying to help such ingrates by bringing them Krishna consciousness. Why go to such botheration? What's the use of trying? He had already nearly 100 temples outside of India. If the people of Bombay didn't like Hare Krishna, then why not go away and leave them to their fate? But no. As a genuine sadhu, Prabhupada was merciful because he had come to deliver the compassionate message of Krishna consciousness. He had to tolerantly give that message to everyone. People were misguided and were living like animals only for sense gratification. And by the laws of karma, they would suffer in their next life. Seeing this unhappy predicament, Prabhupada had felt moved to help these fallen souls, even if they were unappreciative. Srimad Bhagavatam also describes the sadhu as Sahrada Sarva Dehinam. The only desire in his heart is the welfare of others. Being unbounded by nationalism, he thinks of himself not as Indian or American or a human being, or even as human being, but as eternal spiritual soul meant to benefit all the living entities. A sadhu, Srimad Bhagavatam describes is Ajata Shatru because he never creates enemies. Although envious people may declare themselves a sadhu's enemy, a sadhu behaves as the best friend of everyone, trying to bring everyone to Krishna. Because Prabhupada was trying to spread Krishna consciousness, envious persons would continue to oppose him. But as he sublimely showed in Bombay, what can be done? We have to tolerate. Thus, even before any foundations were laid for buildings, Prabhupada had already fully demonstrated all the ornaments of the sadhu. Remaining peaceful, Shanta, and dependent on Krishna, he had become victorious. and forever serves such a great personality. Srimad Bhagavatam states, the door to liberation is open. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you for this motivational summary. How Prabhupada
Finally we
came
could,
as a victor.
yeah, finally we could see the success story. The end.
Yeah, I mean, we see just as a temple, but there is a lot to know. And when we hear this, then it can motivate us and everybody. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For us, it's like we got a rice and it prepared rice, sweet rice, and didn't have to do anything.
Say again.
So it was like everything was cooked for us. So we feel like very
Already.
fortunate. So much struggle and was done in that time.
Yeah. Right.
And he said also that something can be changed to distribute Krishna consciousness, so one can change or adapt the situation. Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe wearing a hat or changing clothes. So
What do you want to do?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So these things are very, very delicate. Yeah. These things are very delicate because there is a dress code, right? For example, why we wear these clothes is not because of convenience, because your kurta is very nice. One dhoti doesn't matter if you, yeah, put on weight or mm, lose weight. One dhoti is enough for everything. It's not matter of convenience. It is actually connecting us because these are not ordinary clothes. These are what are these? Deva Vastra. Say sorry. Daiva Vastra. Vastra. Yeah, correct. Vastra. Why? Because they are spiritual clothes. Also in spiritual world, they wear. Of course, in spiritual world, maybe there are some nice silky or silk robes. Yeah, but devotees, yeah. Again, when we talk about sadhu clothes are simple. If you see in that way, yeah. Once I don't know if you have heard already, Kadam Kanan Maharaj Sadhu Anugaman, where he was giving that when he was traveling in a train, there was an Indian who asked, who was laughing, seeing the dress of Maharaj, and then Maharaj asked, "Okay, have anyone heard about this yet? Or not yet? Uh,
you mean in the plane or when he was traveling in a plane?
was it in the plane? I don't know. It was in train.
It,
I don't know.
yeah, in India, in the train.
The train. Yeah. So then, actually, this guy who was laughing, he was wearing a dress made, these printed shirts which have printed Bermuda shorts, like with flower prints, which is actually like little funny. But anyway, so Maharaj asked, okay, um, do you wear this every day? And this guy was laughing, oh, every day, why? No. But then Maharaj said that I wear this every day, and I wear this every day hmm, because these are not ordinary clothes; these are spiritual clothes. Hmm. So when we understand the importance of these clothes, yeah, we understand. And we have to remember this. Yeah, just matter for convenience. Okay, if I go to some public, I can't wear these because the people may not understand me. Let me not put all these things, tilak, or even Prabhupada is also mentioning to wear tilak mm, and have shika. And also in some other place he said, if you are a grahastha, okay, that's fine. If you do not have shika, so some adjustments are there, uh, as long as you will not forget. Yeah, all these things are there for a purpose that we remember that I am a sadhu. I want to live a saintly life because that is the door to spiritual um, journey or spiritual success. So for that matter, that's why we wear these clothes. It's not of convenience. Okay, mm, just a matter of few kurtas, then we are done. Of course, even in kurtas, people will start creating left cut, right cut, center cut, so many different kinds of designs. Yeah, the purpose is not about designs. Yeah, the purpose is about remembering ourselves that okay, I do not belong here. I belong to a very simple living. So there are devotees who, yeah, if they have to go to public, they wear some suit. Uh, but then the devotee is not just thinking that, he's also thinking that, okay, yeah, is there is a dress code, hmm, Vaishnava etiquette, yeah, and dress code is part of it where we say, okay, if people are, so that's why even in temples, na, okay, maybe here people may brush it off saying, hey, what is there so much in clothes? Yeah, after all, clothes are to cover. Yeah, when you cover from top to bottom, then that's okay. No, but we see, okay, in temples, yeah, okay, especially Tirupati, if you see, there is this, they do not allow people who wear shorts. They do not allow even people who wear pants, I think, for special services. Not only Tirupati temple, there are also other Shaiva temples where if you do some service, some, what do you call, seva, you should not wear shirt. If you are gents, na, you should not wear shirt and you should not cover your upper part. Why all these things are? Yeah, these are telling us what what it means to become a devotee of the Lord. Yeah. So as long as we can remember that, not forget it, not neglect it, not ignore it, or not thinking casually about it. Yeah, changing clothes is not a big problem because again we know it, right? Why we are changing. The next moment, as soon as you get opportunity, you will immediately put on your devotional clothes. But if you think that this is convenient, that is convenient for preaching, this is convenient for my own, people will not think awkward about me. If we start thinking so many things and then ignore the important essence, no? Because during Prabhupada time, Prabhupada didn't say everyone to change clothes, right?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah. Right.
He didn't say, hey, no, no, anyone can put any color. He didn't say, or anyone can become a sadhu, sannyas. I'm giving danda to everyone. Uh, or he's not. So he's establishing certain principles and also allowing flexibility only case to case so that those devotees should are in a position to appreciate bhakti, that they will again come back into this. But anyway, this is a topic of, mm, debate or discussion because it all brings, yeah, there are so many, even during Prabhupada time, na, some people were not ready to give up their beards or long hair. And Prabhupada was strict for them, isn't it? He even said what should be the size of shika. Hmm?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah.
It has its importance. If one can follow it, it's nice. But again, for preaching, when preaching comes in foreground, if we have to find shortcuts, if we have to find, you know, indirect means, that's fine. But we should always not forget the purpose of all these things. The whole sadhana, right? We should understand why are we following all these things? Why are we following ekadasis? Why are we following dresses? Why are we following um these habits? What are the habits? For do's and for don'ts. Hmm? Yeah,
Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
yeah. Like for example, Deepali Mataji took the opportunity, now she joined this session. Yeah. Whenever there is opportunity, we take the opportunity to go more closer to Krishna. Even by that book preaching and all, for that whatever is needed, if you change, if it is helping, that's fine. But I remember Kadam Karan Maharaj also saying that, hey, don't take risks. Yeah, Do you remember when Maharaj was mentioning about people going to the red light areas?
Yes, yeah, correct.
If we go, we may think, hey, we are heroes, na? But how long can we with Maya? Maya is also very strong. We can't challenge Maya in her home, right? Hmm? Unless great personalities are there, we should be very humble. We should not think, hey, I am already been doing sadhana, I am that, I am this, I can. There is no problem, no risk. Uh, but then we may get caught up and yeah, lose the track. Okay. Thank you. Anyone want to share anything that reminded? No? Yes? Or
Yeah. Sorry, Prabhuji. Yeah. This Paris is it was very, a lot of humor, Prabhuji. Prabhupada kind of obviously connects, but this Paris is it was like very comical, Prabhuji. So, and Prabhuji, one question, there Prabhupada says like his Maharaj Gaura Kishore, I think Dasa Babaji, he says like he was illiterate. So how do we get the wisdom if we don't read Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, Prabhuji? Just small.
yeah, they already have knowledge. They are not just now coming. Yeah, they are already. Yeah, they are actually coming from spiritual world, so they already are enlightened beings. Yeah.
Okay, Prabhuji.
It's
Thank you.
not like okay now. Now, if you read, then only you are a scholar. Yeah, they are already there. Because one who is already living a life of Bhagavad, yeah, that means he has already realized everything.
Yes, Prabhuji.
One who says, I don't want followers. Now tell me, who is he? Is he a sadhu or not?
Yes, Prabhuji. So it's imbibed maybe from the past birth and insights.
When Vimal, what is his name? Vimal? Bhakti Siddhartha Saraswati Thakur's name. Vimal? Vimal Krishna? Vimal Prasad. Yeah, Vimal Prasad. So Vimal Prasad, yeah, when he was crying very badly that please accept me, Gaur Vishwadhar Babaji was saying, no, I'm not qualified to give you Diksha. Tell me who will do that.
Yes, Prabhuji.
And then what is he doing? Is he then okay? Is he in his okay? Yeah, he can tell that because if he is busy, then he can tell that he doesn't want to initiate. But what was he busy? He was doing japa all the time. Nadhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam vachakadisha kamaye mama janmani janmanishware bhaktat ahaitu Twayi. Nadhanam na janam na sundarim. No followers. I don't want followers. Na janam na dhanam na sundarim. So yeah, that's what Gaur Kishore Das Babaji.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay, then thank you so much for joining. And yeah, it's a nice victory. Yeah, enjoy celebrating by eating nice feast if you have not yet taken prasad. Panchakalparabhyascha kripa sindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Śrīla Prabhupada. Tomorrow is Radhashtami. On this occasion, Rupa, shall we discuss Radha Rani's pastime tomorrow instead of Bhagavatam about tomorrow?
Yeah, it would be nice hearing about her.
Mhm. Adilasa Prabhu, maybe can you accordingly describe? Yeah, maybe with one nice Radharani photo about tomorrow's session.
So you will send Prabhuji or
If you can find, I think Satish Prabhu will send you a very nice one from ISKCON Hamburg.
Yes, Prabhuji. I will send it immediately, Prabhuji. Yeah.
so with the photo I should write, I mean, for the invitation.
Yeah, with the photo. If you can already you do one thing, please give just the Zoom link and a nice title to Satish Prabhu,
Okay.
and then we will put that on the photo and then send it out. Yeah, and send it to you. Then you can properly send.
Okay, Prabhuji.
Hope that's okay, Satish Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji. So, any space? Is it like a flyer, or how should we do it, Prabhuji?
Not a typical player, just rather, I mean, that photo, whatever you saw on the top, proper heading,
Yes,
and heading glories of yeah. Give me some time, maybe in 5 minutes I'll give some title. To put
And the
the
Prabhuji,
title and then join Zoom. So then you provide the link.
yes.
and the link we use the same link. Of course.
Yeah, everything. Bhagavad.
Okay.
Okay. Then till tomorrow. Śrīla Prabhupāda ki Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.